Mayor, thanks for doing this. You've had a few days to process now your announcement on Monday. What have you heard? What have you thought about since making the announcement you will not seek re-election?
So I've gotten just a tremendous outpouring of support from people. It's been really gratifying to hear from all quarters of the city of people saying they're really sorry that I'm not running. But then it quickly moved to just the business. And this week has shown me that we have so much work ahead this coming year. I think all of us have been saying, let's just let 2020 end. But 21 is going to have some real challenges. We're going to have this COVID is not done with us. We have some really rough months ahead in terms of the increase in the virus. It's going to take longer than people think to get vaccinated. And so we're going to have a tough, at least first half of 21. So we're getting ready for that, how to get the vaccine out to people, how to support businesses. I talked to both senators yesterday, urging them to get help for our businesses and workers and to pass a federal package. So there's a lot of work ahead. And it tells me I did the right thing in terms of focusing on the work that needs to be done.
You know, just a couple of years ago, we sat down with you and four other officials in the area, the police chief, the superintendent, the sheriff, the University of Washington president, all women, all with diverse backgrounds. And in just the last few months, as you know, in fact, in a 24-hour period, there's going to be a change with three of those five positions. The fourth, the sheriff, based on the vote in November, could also be changing as well. What do you think all of this says about gender politics in the city of Seattle and King County?
So first, the positive side is you do have so many strong women leaders here in the Pacific Northwest. And I think that that's really good. Some of the best letters I've gotten during the pandemic have been from little girls writing me letters telling me that they are so happy I'm their mayor and to stay strong. And so I think having those role models is terrific. I do think that, women still are treated very differently, both when they run for offices and when they hold offices. The coverage is different. When I was running for office in this day, people comment on what you're wearing. You can have disagreements with other people, but instead of being called disagreements, you clash with people or fight with people. And I think there should be a different level of scrutiny on ourselves, on what we do and how we treat and cover women officials, because I think there still is a marked difference between how women leaders are covered and how male leaders are. But to be fair, it doesn't mean you can't criticize women leaders, and it doesn't mean they aren't required to make really hard decisions. And I think that we will continue to benefit in the Pacific Northwest from a range of really strong women leaders, and I'm proud to have been one of them.
So do you believe that the women in these high-profile roles were scrutinized in a way that wouldn't have happened if there was a man in those same roles?
So I think it's not the scrutiny, it is the expectations and the coverage. I mean, if you look at the inbox that I had during the height of criticism, the thousands and thousands of very vitriolic emails, many of them are purely misogynistic. I walk out my house after people have been here and spray painted our misogynistic and homophobic slurs. I don't think that happens to men. I think they're criticized for different things, but they're not called the B word, the C word, etc. It devolves very rapidly, and women are treated differently in that way. But we do know it's fine that women have to be scrutinized. I'm not saying that. I think absolutely. As mayor, everyone has the absolute right to challenge me, to ask hard questions, to challenge what I've done. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the tenor of the discussion and criticism really should be focused on the substance, not on the personalities and not on a person's gender.
Yeah, you just mentioned little girls. I mean, there are little girls that are watching what is playing out in the city of Seattle. There are other women who are thinking about running for office, given what has transpired here over the last few months, and especially this week. What kind of advice would you give to any potential candidate thinking about running for or applying for any of these jobs?
So first I would say whatever people do, do what you love and do what makes a positive difference. And if you're one of the people that believe that running for office is how you can make that positive difference, you should do it. And it's good for our city, our state, our country. But at the same time, you should go in eyes wide open because you will be subjected to different kinds of criticism and critiques that others won't. I think that's going to change over time because you're seeing now more and more women joining every kind of workforce, not enough, but more. And so the expectations and how women work in a workplace can be different than how men approach it. And I think that as a society, we were far behind a lot of other countries in terms of having women in important roles. We still lack women in the boardrooms. We still lack women as head of CEOs of major companies. Women perhaps are one of the most left behind segments in terms of pay and opportunity, but we're getting there. And so I'd say to every little girl, go make a difference. And if you could be mayor or governor or president, that's amazing.
What do you think it says about Seattle and King County, though, that within a 2-year period, at a time when we were championing the fact that there were women in leadership in key roles, that people that were recruited into these positions from other parts of the country, that there could be tremendous changeover and we could go back to men in those same positions.
So I think the thing that I hope there's some introspection on is the tenor of our political debate in the last year particularly has not just been divisive and disagreements. It has really been negative and filled with vitriol that adopted some of the same tactics that our president had. And I think that we're better than that. And I think that, on the one hand, you saw a number of people who, for example, were very supportive of AOC going to the well of the House, really condemning that she'd been called the B word. And a lot of people rose up and thought that was courageous. And then we have those same phrases used against the women leaders here. And so I think we have to really be introspective and we can disagree. And there will be disagreements, but we have to find our common humanity. And in order to come out of COVID, in order to recover economically, I really believe we have to find a way to look at those common goals, because that's the only way we will get back to equitable prosperity.
Okay, a couple other subjects quickly in the limited time we have left. One is the letter that's being sent to the Biden transition team. Curious what you're hoping to accomplish there, and also if you're interested in a role in the Biden administration.
So I was really happy to sign on to the letter with a number of my colleague mayors from across the country, bipartisan letter telling the new administration the help that we need in cities from day one. If we had had a partner in the White House to help cities, this would have been a very different year. If we had not had to fight the White House and the federal government, this would have been a different year. And there's things they can do right away. For example, we know, Chris, that our country has never delivered a vaccination as we're going to have to do in the coming year. We have to get about 70% of people living in the area vaccinated with 2 shots in a very short period of time. That means a distribution channel, it means infrastructure. And we know from the past 9 to 10 months that if the city doesn't have the resources for that to happen, it won't happen. You look at our testing, and we stood up some of the best testing in the country, but we did it as a city. So we need help on that. We need a mass mandate. We need him to push as much as he can to get help for our workers and our small businesses. People are struggling, and it will be easier to come out of this COVID crisis if we're able to build some resilience.
So have you talked to the Biden administration about a role there?
Biden administration has not reached out as a role there, but I will have a lot of conversations with the Biden administration about what Seattle needs. And that's going to be everything from infrastructure dollars to fix our West Seattle Bridge, to making sure that we move forward on climate, and having someone to help us get through this next 9 months of COVID, which is going to be really, really hard for our city.
So on vaccines, do you think the city is prepared for this distribution? I mean, how do you protect the vaccine, make sure there aren't long lines, et cetera?
We are working through those details right now. Obviously, the state is the entity that has most of the responsibility together with public health, but the city's trying to work with them to make sure that we can help here in the city. It's going to be enormously complicated. We don't even know how much of the vaccine we're getting when. The cold chain, as they call it, the freezers you need for one of the vaccines requires really low temperatures. They're sold out worldwide. And so it's going to take a significant amount of partnership and collaboration with the laboratories, with the city, with the state, with the counties, and with the federal government. I think we're on the right track. But as you've read in the paper and have reported on King, Pfizer and others think that they may not have the additional vaccinations that the country needs until June. We're unsure what the supply chain is going to look like between now and June. It's one reason in the letter we sent to the president is that we think the Defense Production Act is critical to invoke to make sure we have enough PPE and enough vaccination, because people don't think about it, but every time you get a test for COVID and every time the vaccination, it requires gloves or a mask or that. So we're burning through a lot of PPE as well.
Okay, two final questions. One I had hoped to ask you the other day, but just your reaction to the lawsuit by the Chamber of Commerce, the Seattle Metropolitan Chamber of Commerce, to throw out the payroll tax.
So the city will defend that lawsuit vigorously. As you know, one of the reasons I did not sign the tax is because I thought that there were litigation risks, but we will move forward. We're implementing the tax as we speak, and we'll see what the courts decide.
And then the final question, it came up this morning. The state Supreme Court issued an opinion about your recall or the recall effort against you, and had mentioned that in their opinion that once Mayor Durkan became aware of the violation, she did not take further steps to intervene, take control of the situation. This failure to act, the recall petitioners contend, was misfeasance and a violation of her oath of office. I don't know if you've had a chance to look through that opinion as it was issued this morning, but I just wanted to see if you had a reaction to what the Supreme Court had to say.
Yeah, I was gratified that the Supreme Court confirmed again what we've been saying along is even alleging the worst facts that weren't true, taking them as true, the court said that it was not legally or factually sufficient. And it confirmed that, listening to Chief Best and relying on her experience was a reasonable thing to do, and was something that I did and the city council didn't do. So I think it's finally behind us, and am gratified that the court again confirmed unanimously that the recall effort was not legally sufficient or factually sufficient.